So let's talk about the first book of the Mahabharata, which is called the Adi Parvan, which literally means the first book. It's one of the longest of the Mahabharata's 18 books, with 236 chapters arranged into 19 sections, and it starts by establishing those two outer frames that we talked about for the epic, and then it moves on to give you a kind of whole lot of primordial myths, including like the story of the churning of the ocean and many, many different side stories about ancient sages, kings, and the gods, and so on, like dozens and dozens of these stories. And if there's one word that sort of characterizes this whole Adi Parvan and all of the different stories that it tells, it's genealogy. Now, the most basic meaning of genealogy in English is how something comes into being. It's genesis, right? And it's usually used when we're talking about family trees, like your family genealogy. And that's kind of the central concern, if you want to think about it, of Book One, which is to map out in detail all of the very complicated family trees of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Now, the word for family genealogy in Sanskrit is vansha, and actually this is the same word that means bamboo, and it's very evocative, actually. Have you ever seen how bamboo grows? It's basically like one line segment on top of another that stretches up and gets stronger as it grows, right? It sort of gets thicker and thicker. But there's another interesting thing. That's evocative enough, but there's another interesting thing about bamboo. It grows not just by itself, but it grows in thickets, right? Or in groves. How come? It's because down below, under the ground, these different bamboo shoots are all linked together through a complex system of special roots that are called rhizomes, right? So the idea is, the allegory is that extended political families also work like this. They're independent shoots that go straight up, which are all like stand for the different kingdoms, but underground, they're all connected together in the ancient past. So the Adi Parva is going to spend a whole amount of time going through all the different shoots, if you will, of what's called the lunar dynasty of ancient India, the Chandra Vansha. This dynasty claims to have descended from the moon, the Chandra. The other major dynastic group in Hindu mythology is called the Surya Vansha, the solar dynasty. And the story is that they were ultimately descended from the sun. The important member of that dynasty is Lord Rama, the hero of the other epic, the Ramayana. So the story of the lunar dynasty, the Kurus, starts really with what this fellow Shantanu first did with the Ganga, right, and this fisher girl who lived on the other big the river on the kingdom is the Yamuna. From both of these unusual marriages, we get a whole mess of problems for the lineage, especially when Bhishma renounces his claim to the throne and becomes celibate. He declares celibacy. The genealogy gets threatened, but can only be saved by a Brahmin, Vyasa, who acts as a sex surrogate, right, and impregnates the widowed queens of the kingdom and continues the lineage. All the births in this book are kind of intentionally very strange. There's Pandu and Dhritarashtra, of course, but then there's basically all of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Pandavas are fathered by gods, right? And while Duryodhana and his brothers are kind of like test tube babies, born out of little shards of a massive iron ball and gestated in jars of ghee, right? Clarified butter. The youthful adventures of the rival cousins is also an important part of this book, including how they encounter perhaps the most arresting and fascinating figure of the entire epic, which is Karna, the man who doesn't know who he really is. The main plotline events that happen are that the Kauravas try jealously to assassinate the Pandavas by burning them in a house made of wax. Then the Pandavas escape. They go into hiding in the forest. While they're in hiding, they get married to Draupadi. All 5 of them get married to Draupadi. It's a really interesting story. They have this kind of arrangement where they each gets to spend an allotted time with her. Then Arjuna screws it up. He comes in at the wrong time, so he has to go off on his own for a while in a kind of personal exile, where he meets another set of women, including Krishna's sister, who he marries, his maternal cousin, who named Subhadra. The first book ends with the blind Kuru king named Dhritarashtra deciding that he should split the kingdom in half between the Pandavas and his own sons, the Kauravas. This is kind of a vain attempt to broker peace and end their burgeoning rivalries. He gives the Pandavas a kind of rugged wasteland, but at the end of the book, they undertake this massive deforestation project, basically. They burn down this whole jungle known as the Khandava forest and begin sort of agrarian and urban spaces renewal, basically, of this wild forest. So there you go, kind of quick overview of book 1. Enjoy your reading, and we'll see you in book 2.